This is a Being Unboxed exclusive with Renee and Stay there.
Listen, guess what time it is, y'all? Y'all know it's that time again. It is Sunday at 3 o'clock, and you are here with me again. You are ready to be unboxed, and today is going to be an amazing day, an amazing topic. Here in the month of March, it is Women's Month. And I really don't like to focus too much on what the months represent per se, because everything we celebrate, we should be celebrating 24/7, 365 days a year. But because it is Mother's Day here in March, not Mother's Day, because it is Women's Month in March, we're going to be talking to a lot of amazing women and about some amazing things. And y'all know I'm excited because it's Sunday. It's Sunday Fun Day. And you are with Renee on Being Unboxed on the Flex Radio at 3 p.m. You could have been anywhere, but guess where you chose to be? With me again. And I am forever grateful and appreciative that you tuned back in this Sunday. Now, I do want to say this though before I go on. Next time, can you bring a friend? Oh, this is that type of party where you can't, you don't just log on, but you bring your friends, you pass it on, you share it, you let everybody know what the Flex Radio is doing. And so bring a friend, share it. Like, make a comment under the YouTubes or under the Instagram page or under the Facebook page, but bring friends to this here party because we welcome y'all. Okay. All right. That's what I wanted to tell y'all. So Women's Month in March. Today we have a guest. And I'm going to be talking with my sister girl. And I so love sister girl chats. You know why? Because it's without restraints. It's no boundaries. It's no borders. We keep it 100, keep it a buck. I be tripping because I be saying my little young stuff. And my kids be like, Mom, please don't. Not with it. But so I'm going to keep it 100. I'm going to keep it 100. We're going to keep it a buck. We're going to do whatever it is, but we are not going to be boxed on this day. So my sister chat today is with JohVonni Jackson, her beautiful self, y'all. Okay. One beautiful spirit. And y'all going to see that. You're not going to be able to see her and you're not going to be able to see me, but you're going to hear. You know that we actually do hear with our eyes. Somebody say something. I just want to tell y'all what we usually do when we're like, turn that noise down. I can't see TV. You know what I'm saying? So I just want you to think about that because it really is true. But we're going to talk to JohVonni today. And just to give you a little bit about her, but she can tell you a little bit about herself as well while we're talking with our sister girl. But she is part owner of this Flex radio station. Yeah. Can we get the clap trap? Can we get the clap track? Yes, she is part owner of how I get to come here every Sunday. Okay, so we're going to give her big ups for that because if it wasn't for her, it wouldn't be a unbox on Sunday at 3. Then she's also an author, an actress, a poet, and a speaker, y'all. But you know what? It's her heart nature. You know what her most greatest rewarding job is? Being a mom. Being a mom. And that's one amazing job that you don't ever escape. And you do your best and you produce your best. So here it is, that Women's Month of March. We're going to be talking sister chat today. We're going to be talking about mental health because it's so necessary. But we also going to focus on anxiety because a lot of us are challenged with it. And then some of us don't even know that we have it. So we're going to talk about anxiety today with our mental health. So welcome, Miss JohVonni Jackson. And I do my own background. No, that's me. I bring my own background noise.
Hi, Renee. Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday, girl. Listen, It is so funny. My guests always be like, wait, Renee, the introduction, like you got me hyped. I was ready to come in. I'm like, hey, because it's Sunday. We can race start this week. We don't want to start it off with a whole bunch of, oh yeah. No, we bring in the party here on Sundays, right? We make sure that people is live. We kicking it. We ready to roll for the rest of the week. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, girl. Yes.
And I already know I do the most. I just know
it. No, but you're a lot of fun though.
Oh, thank you, sis.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Girl, we have conversations and, we're talking about this state of mental health. We've got so much going on in this world. I mean, January brought in some real crazy changes.
Yeah.
February, we looked at some more crazy changes. And here we are in the month of March. And I'm sure that even through the last part of last year's season, that people have a lot of anxiety, and when we talk about even the effects that anxiety has on us as an individual, you know that since I've talked to people who have had anxiety or panic attacks and didn't even realize it, like they really thought they were full blown heart attacks because how they had been so gripped into the anxiety that they didn't even know their body was holding on to that. And I just wanted to share this because even clinically speaking, I can tell everybody what anxiety is, but who in a ham sandwich need that? Just because I got a degree, I ain't got to make it all big. I don't need to use 50 cents worth. I'm going to just talk about the core anxiety is, you know what I'm saying? It's really just worrying, stressing, and fearing over situations, circumstances that hasn't happened yet, but to the point where it becomes debilitating to your mind and your body and your soul. Because somebody
Mhm.
might say, I don't have anxiety. Girl, I'm fine. I understand. But you don't realize when you're talking, oh my God, I hope my rent get paid. I hope my job don't mess up my check. Oh God, I got a headache. I just can't even worry about this again. It's too much. That's really anxiety. And
Mhm.
yeah, and it's worrying about something that hasn't happened yet. And later on, we're going to talk about how we're going to be able to dispel some of that anxiety. So, do you when you think about anxiety for yourself, is it something that you have experienced? I know for myself, I have a whole lot, and before I even acknowledged, recognized, or knew that it was anxiety, I just thought it was just I just get too overly worried about something. And that's not, we can worry, but when it becomes debilitating and it begins to affect us, then we have to really deal with it. Is that something that you've ever kind of dealt with?
Oh, for sure. I actually was diagnosed with severe anxiety disorder. Uh,
Okay.
and, you know, as far back as I could remember, I always had it, even as a little girl.
Mm-hmm.
And then, going into teens and all that, and becoming a mom, all through that. And I just thought that this is what it's like to be a human being. I never knew exactly what it was
Mm-hmm.
till like the last 15 years.
And
Um,
you said something, sis. I want to just say you said you had it as a child. I really want to kind of focus right there for a minute because when when it's an onset, childhood onset, it's a lot of times it's due to our environments, right?
mhm.
And like you said, you didn't know it for the last 15 years because it was something that was almost like a norm in your environment, right?
Oh, for sure.
Situations caused that anxiety to begin to build. And I just kind of wanted to put that out there because we have to be cognizant of our children's environments because
Right.
we plant that seed or that seed is planted, whether it's in our homes, in our schools, in our churches. Yep, I said it. Or in our neighborhoods, because I can't keep 100. We actually plant those seeds of anxiety, and then we live in such a way of an anxious nature, like you said, for years and years, until when it does become and affected us in other ways that we have to stop and go, wait, what is going on? And we're going to talk about ways that it affects us as well, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. So go ahead, babe.
Yes. So, for a time there, I was taking a prescribed medication for the anxiety called Effexor.
Mm-hmm.
And I just did not like the effects that had on my brain. So I weaned up off of that. I've been able to manage depression. I've been able to manage PTSD, post traumatic stress disorder. But this anxiety, it's a challenge. That's really a challenge. And then on top of it all, I have the audacity to be a whole empath. So I'm like feeling everybody else's stuff as well, you know.
Mm-hmm. And
But
you're right that medicine. So I had a conversation with another sister the other day, and we were talking about mental health, and we were saying how come it's such a rise per se, because we were remembering back like in the 60s and 70s, it wasn't that it wasn't there was no diagnosis, it just wasn't as prevalent as it is right now. And what we were talking about was the fact that sometimes we can actually overdiagnose and overdo things. And what I mean by that is, you know, yeah, it's unboxed. What happens is as we started being force fed a lot of these social things, these social new norms, the governmental new norms, society new norms, and things of that nature, it increased such things as anxiety. But these are strategically placed to do that because the more we have these diagnoses, the more medicines can be pushed on us. Do you understand what I'm saying?
right.
The more we have to interact with the quote unquote Food and Drug Administration. So, we get anxious, we get stressed, we get depressed, we eat poor things. Then what we do with the poor things with the eating, it does things to our body. When it does things to our body, we go to the doctor. What the doctor do, she gives us or he gives us pills. And then we don't actually face what's going on. We suppress what's going on with the medication. You know what I mean? And then we diagnose people sometimes that really don't even have it. And just because we can get them pills, right? Or don't diagnose. And I was telling her, what about the people who are homeless that really do have the diagnosis, but don't have the ability financially or medically to even obtain support as mental health resources, or if neurologically they are in need of any medication? You know what I mean? That's a challenge that we have, and that's why we've got to talk about this, because we're gonna put out there some things on how to make this supportive. So tell me a little bit about what you did, and how you navigate without taking the medication, though.
Well, first of all, you know, I tried to do the 333 rule
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
when I'm having an anxiety attack. I try to see three different things, move three different parts of my body, things of that nature. And then I try to hear three different things,
mm-hmm,
you
mm-hmm,
know. And so then the focus is now on trying to do those things, and it's taking away from that focus that is causing the anxiety.
mm-hmm,
You know what I mean? And sometimes it's really effective
mm-hmm.
if I can, nip it in the butt early. But then sometimes it's just too late and it's so far gone. And I end up, dealing with it. Um, Therapy has helped me just overall in general,
Mm-hmm.
and, there's a stigma out there about therapy. Nobody doesn't want to unbox
Mhm, mhm.
themselves. You know what I mean? And it forces you to deal with those difficult things, about yourself, the traumas in life, what the root cause of
Mm.
is. And it's not a fun journey. You know,
It's not.
it's a very hard beginning, but once you start working through these things and analyzing these things and talking with somebody that is not a family member or doesn't know you on that level, it gets better.
It
It
does.
gets better in time. You know
I
what I mean?
tell
Because you
people,
heard,
you
and you be understood, you know. So
and
those
like you got to be real. I don't slight anybody who has a challenge with therapy, especially if you have a good therapist, right?
right,
Because that good therapist is going to challenge you to face your real, right?
right,
I have that slogan, I think we met on this slogan, like you have to be real, then deal so that you can heal. And a lot of people don't finish or navigate through that healing because what happens is you have to face those things that made you either hurt or go into your box or have challenges in order for you to then overcome them. And a lot of times it's challenging revisiting those. And if you don't, like you said, if you don't revisit them with people of comfort, no judgment, but also with some solutions, you'll find yourself even deeper into whatever you came in to get healing for. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. And there's just a stigma within our own race about mental health in general.
It
You
is.
know, we can pray hard on bended knee, but sometimes there's some things that just cannot be prayed away.
It's funny you said the word pray, right?
Mhm.
Because we can definitely pray, but that
Yes.
stigma around us as melanated individuals when it comes down to therapy as well is because too many people prey on us as well. I
Yeah.
remember back in the day when my son was in the fourth grade, and he would always, his teacher was always having an issue with him. He's like, he's flipping his pencil, he's rolling out of his chair, da da da. And the first thing she told me was, he has ADHD. And I was like, well, wait a minute, hold up. Now, mind you, not knowing that I was in the field of study and things of that nature, but I'm like, wait a minute, hold up. And so I said, well, let's test him academically. Let's see where he's at. He was in the fourth grade, 9 years old. He tested on a 12th grade level, sis. I said, there
Wow.
is your problem. Your problem is not so much as that he's rolling out of the chair, but it's that he's not being challenged in your system for
Not
him to then
stimulated.
have to do something else. But because he's a Black boy,
Mhm.
right? The
Mhm.
first thing you're going to tell me is that he has a problem and you want to put him on Ritalin. Now, if I wasn't a parent that knew or I wasn't a parent that advocated, I probably would have medicated my child because I wouldn't have, known no better. So with
Yeah.
that stigma also comes fear. Our melanated melanated people are fearful because it's like, wait, how many people have they done experiments on? We talking about the Tuskegee experiment. We're talking
Yes.
about Henrietta Lacks. So like a lot of us have been test dummies. So that's why I think it's so important for the therapy piece and for the village piece, because that's what's going to make it supportive and it even give you the strength or the ability or somebody to talk to when you are going to the medical field, or you are going to somebody that they're helping break it down and helping you to understand. And I just want to share this just because I want to tell people some of the things that anxiety actually does. Just kind of having some medical diagnoses and they just don't understand why, like what's going on. One of the largest things that anxiety does is clears up your digestive system, right?
Mhm.
It gives you all sorts of intestinal problems. That's the IBS problems, that's the Crohn's, that's a lot of health problems by not being able to. And I know you from the medical field, you can help me out with this. It causes actually the colon itself not to contract as it should in order to pass through the passage waste through your body, which then becomes, listen to this, which then becomes toxins in your body, and those toxins become cancer.
Mhm. You
So
are
it's a
absolutely
serious
right. And not only that, the effects that anxiety have on the brain,
yes,
migraines. I
yes,
mean, I've been suffering with those, lately. And
yes, high blood pressure.
yeah, now, fortunate for me, I
Mhm.
don't have high blood pressure. I don't understand why.
We're not gonna invite it.
No, but knock on wood, I don't have blood pressure issues. But
Mhm.
I mean, body aches, I have that, you
Yeah.
know, just even nightmares, feeling like you're falling in your sleep.
Mhm.
It's awful. It's
Because
really
it
awful.
because that anxiety takes us to a place, and listen to this, like if you can go visual with me, y'all, if y'all can go visual, go visual with me. Anxiety is like creating a movie and a picture, a horror movie and a horror picture where there is no director yelling cut. There is no film rolling there because you are actually the director. You are the person that's creating the screenplay. You're the person. So the only person that can yell cut or end that story is you. And one of the ways to end that story, like you said, is to begin to, and this I was going to talk about this a little later, but we just sister chatting, is we have to change the narrative, right? Because we
Yeah.
made up of experiences. So every experience we have, in order to balance it out, we have to counteract those negative experiences that causes us to go into anxiety and create a new narrative or a new experience, right? Anxiety, let's just say there was a long time ago, I got into an accident with a bus, with like a MARTA bus. And for a while, I had very bad nerves driving close to a bus. I like wouldn't do it. I stopped driving for a while in all actuality. I stopped driving because I was fearful because that accident was an experience I had. But then I had to change the narrative in the experience. Even if I took my car and I drove from like maybe a block, I had to start doing things to change that experience to counteract what that experience was, because that's what we're made of. And that's where anxiety comes from. It's also a trigger. You can experience something bad, and then you have people that, or you'll have something that trigger a little bit of that bad experience, and now we create a whole narrative. So we've got to start changing that narrative about the story and about seeing it a different way. We've got to change the perspective. Yup, I remember that time, and this is just an example. Maybe I remember that time I got bit by a dog when it was raining outside. So now every time it rains, you're triggered about, this dog being outside or whatever. But you change that perspective and you change that narrative and go, you know what? I don't see dogs outside. I'm not going to think that there's a dog outside every time it rains. Every time it rains, it's not going to be an injury for me. That self-talk is better than any medication, because that medication is going to numb that part of your brain to be able to cognitively think of something better or something that will present a different experience. That's why I kind of just, I'm not judging or getting on anybody. It's just that I'm not an advocate for the medication because it's a suppressor.
Yeah, exactly. And that was my point. I was like, I'm not going to be sitting up here taking a pill that makes my brain feel funny.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not doing it. I would just take my chances, do my research, stay in therapy, and, do that, because I'm not good at remembering to take a pill, too, you know. So it's like I don't want to be on any form of any type of medication unless it's ibuprofen. But another thing, contributing factor to it, is when you have like multiple, mental
Yes.
illnesses going on. So I do have post traumatic stress disorder. I
Now,
have.
can I ask
Mhm.
when did this developed, or where was it a pinpoint as to when you feel like this actually maybe this post-traumatic, were there situations, circumstances, or that you can pinpoint that go, you know what, this is probably was the onset of that.
I'm just going to chalk it up to being JohVonni Jackson.
Well,
Uh,
wait a minute, wait, because see, wait, who, wait, okay, Giovanni Jackson is who? Wait now, wait, my listeners don't know. They know that you about to flex radio, but wait, who is Giovanni Jackson? Because you're my sister girl, so, but who are you? Who are you?
well, JohVonni Jackson is the daughter of Joe Jackson and Cheryl Terrell.
Come on,
So
man.
I feel like, my trauma comes from, being in dysfunction. Dysfunction was my normal.
Got you,
You know
got
what
you.
I mean? And then, life experiences. I was bullied as a child, beat up, jumped, shot at, all that.
Wait, well, if they ain't post-traumatic stress disorders situations, they would be that. But that's a lot, and
Yeah.
like you said, that's a lot. First of all, the pressure of a Jackson,
Yeah.
right?
That's
Um,
a lot because, in my family, and when you are a Jackson and you are related to such iconic individuals with an incredible talent, it makes you wonder, like, okay, what is it? Like, I'm not the dancer, I'm not the singer. Like, who am I? But lucky enough for me, I'm a writer, I'm an author.
right, right.
So, that's my thing. You know what I mean? But that alone is traumatizing. And then, a lot of it was situational. My mother was my father's mistress for over 25 years. So it's like, okay, so daddy's going home to his wife and he'll be back tomorrow. It's just crazy.
Right, right.
So,
but it kind of takes me back to the point of what I was saying about the environments that we have as children, that it begins to cultivate things that not only that plant seeds, but it's seeds that we don't even know are already planted. And then we operate out of those seeds to develop our characteristics, our perspective, and how we navigate through relationships with other people.
yes, you're absolutely right about that. And what a lot of people don't understand about trauma is that each trauma you have changes the physicality of your brain.
And it does. Say that again, my sister. It really does.
It does. So you're not even working with your original brain that you had, because now your brain is just different. And so the amount of trauma that I have had, my brain has changed and changed and changed and changed. You know what I mean? So it's just, it's unfortunate, but these are the cards that I have been dealt, and I'm dealing with that. You know what I mean? And I've had,
every day we're gonna be slipping new cards into that deck, baby. So you got a whole nother deck to play with. And I'm trying to tell you, I totally get what you say. I used to say, because like I said, this is the girl chat. I have been in so many abusive relationships, and my excuse to myself used to be, I just have a high tolerance for pain. Like I literally had told myself that. I was just like, where other people might have been like, girl, I would have got rid of him. And I was like, I don't listen to that anyway. But my whole thing was no, just like you said, we're going to go here about being the empath. I'm like, no, I understand. I get him. I feel him. And I'm like, my high tolerance for pain, I wore as a badge of honor, not understanding that, no, I need to deal with that pain, because in dealing with that pain, it begins to lower my my bar and my acceptance for settling, abuse, poor relationships. And that's not even just intimate. I mean, even girlfriends. I had to cut girlfriends off because I'm like, you're not really my friend. You know what I mean? But I accepted and tolerated things for that very thing because of what was either lacked, overdone, or desired in my formative years. That's that trauma that started early, and it shaped who I was, and notice I say who I was, because after I realized that who I was not, like you said, operating at my full self, I have to start doing some things. And like you said, like we agreed upon, it ain't easy. But I always tell people, if you really want to heal, you're going to have to make some hard lefts and some hard rights. But I promise you, if you keep on driving, you're going to get to that place, a destination that's called peace. You're going to get place that's called comfort, where you're able to enjoy life. Does that mean you're not going to run into something else again? No, but you will be so much stronger, and it will not knock you down, and you will be able to see some things before they come.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right about all of that. I feel like these days, like, people are just different now.
Oh my gosh, yes.
You know what I mean? It's just the morals have changed. There's a lack of kindness just in the world in general. It's lacking love. You know what I mean? It's lacking honesty. You know what I mean? It's lacking so much. And the whole look, human beings are dealing with a lot in 2025. So
that we've never dealt with before.
No,
ever.
because I was sitting there thinking, about my dad. He was born during the Great Depression. And then I was thinking about my mom. My mom has never even, seen anything like what's happening today.
So let me ask you a question, JohVonni. How old were you when your mom passed away?
Oh my goodness. My mom has been gone a while. And it is one of those traumatic things that I have blocked out. Um, I really couldn't give you an age, because when my mother passed, my mother died from Huntington's disease, for one.
I'm not familiar, and we give our most sincere continued comfort for you for that.
Thank you. It's a neurological disease. It's similar to Parkinson's.
Okay. Okay.
Where, you know, you have these body movements and all that. So she really suffered. She's one of the few individuals that actually died from the disease.
Oh, wow.
And it's coming up on the anniversary of her death, and I miss, oh, girl.
Listen, y'all, we're going to through this airwave, even in this show right here. We're going to let her feel all the love, all the hugs, all the comfort, and all the support because she deserves it. And we all do, but we're going to give it to her right now. So when you listen to this, I don't listen. You might find her on YouTube, IG, or whatever. You better send her a love, a hug, a kiss, or something, a word of affirmation, because these are the things that help us change the narrative. No, we can't change the situation, but it helps us with that new experience, honestly, to go forth. And I told her, we're going to change those cards in that deck because we playing with a different hand, sis.
Seriously. You know, there's nothing more terrible than having both of your parents deceased.
Yes.
When my mom died, I was relieved for her, you know, because it was gone from her.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But, you know, my mom, she was a social butterfly. She is stunningly beautiful. She loved to party. She loved to have a good time. And she was an excellent friend. You know what I mean? But I didn't actually mourn my mother until like 2 years later. And one day I just woke up and I was unconsolable.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't stop saying her name.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I miss my mom and I miss my dad. You know, I just miss that. And I recently lost my brother, my
Yes.
favorite brother. I'm just sick of it because I feel like people need my permission to go on and check out. You have to consult with me first.
How about that? Y'all ain't talked to JohVonni before this happened, you know?
We got to have a
Absolutely.
conversation because I have to be mentally prepared, you know?
Right.
And
And
then,
you know, a aspect of anxiety that we don't talk about, like you said, that place we talk about changing the narratives and kind of the terror stories, but a part of that terror story also is loss and fear, right? Because those things also bring upon. It doesn't have to be like a car accident, like I said, or something like that. It can just be the loss of someone because it fears making that picture without them. What happens after this? And just hearing what you're saying, your mom was your like probably your best friend. It seems like she was definitely very, very, very close to you. And again, so it's like, what do I do as I go on from there? You know what I mean? But I want to say this to you, sis. You know, you're making her proud because you're one strong, resilient woman who is relentless, and you've got so much to offer, and you refuse to sit down and not let all of that keep you in a place of bondage. You have now. Listen, I don't know Joe Jackson personally, of course, but you definitely got his fighting spirit, right? You are not going to just sit still and let.
I gave him a run for his money. I gave him a run for his money. But you know what? You know, I felt so honored because I was able to be there for my father in his last moments on earth in such a real way. You know, and I literally watched him take his last breath. And you know, he had become like my baby, you know, and it was just really hard to see because he's this larger than life personality. And he's just, you know, I didn't realize that I was like a legit daddy's girl. I mean, he got on my nerves. We bickered all the time. We, you know,
Probably because y'all was alike.
yeah. And it was a lot of that, you know, and it's just like, wow, when he was gone, I was like, oh my God, what the hell? What in the world? I was like, seriously, Dad? You know, but bless his heart, you know, he put in the good fight. And I even asked him, I was like, Dad, are you scared? He said, hell no. I said, okay, because I'm not going to be scared either. Because if you're scared, then I'm going to be scared shitless. But
Oh my gosh. Listen.
yeah, but I'm telling you, Renee, when he died, I felt it. I was right there and I felt him push himself out his body.
Wow.
And it was, I felt silly in a sense because I thought, I would be relieved, that he wouldn't be suffering anymore. But then there was nothing more painful than that, because it left me feeling like, who am I really without without my dad? Who, if I'm not fussing with him,
Right.
arguing about why he needs to take this and why he can't have fried chicken, who am I really?
Right. So look, so we look at mental health, right? And
Yeah.
we look at some is genetic, right?
Hmm.
So and some is environmental. And you're talking about your dad. He had been through a lot, like right, like if nothing else was in the headlines, and for his fathering and what he did, but then at the same token, who he produced. So let me ask you a question: How much do you believe or stand on that there is also some genetics when it comes down to mental health and things of that nature? Like, are there any of your other family members that have had challenge with mental health, and okay with publicly speaking about it as well, because we got to speak about it.
Well, I honestly feel like my dad did have some mental health issues.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I do believe that it stemmed from there, because genetics are
Yeah.
an important part of this. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Not necessarily on my mom's side.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Well, no, I get it, because a lot of what we go through, I mean, it's biblically speaking that the bloodline, we carry our father's bloodline. So whatever's in the DNA of the dad, you know what I mean? So, you
Yeah.
have other siblings that are literally full siblings from your dad. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
yeah, that can be, it's said that we get the characteristics of our mothers, and we get the bloodline and the DNA stuff, of course, of our dads.
Yeah. But, dad would argue, ain't nothing wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I mean, it is what it is. And then again, just environment and situation. Like when my daughter, Yasmin Jackson, when she got attacked, and brutally stabbed all over her
Oh,
body and called the N word and all that, that was just another trauma.
absolutely. I
And
mean,
then it was like I was on my way to agoraphobia, because I was like, you just don't know who you even live next door to. You
mhm,
could be
mhm.
buying eggs at the grocery store, and the person next to you could do something. It really, really got bad. And that's how we ended up in Georgia. But that was something I had to overcome, because I was just terrified in broad daylight driving to the grocery store. I didn't want to leave the house,
Yeah. And I
you know?
mean, that's a lot, because, again, like you said, you are navigating through your experience as a child. You're navigating who you are as a child. You're navigating the lack of maybe interaction with other siblings. You're navigating being a parent. Now you have to uproot, because, coming from Cali, like you said, that was your hometown. Then you went to another town. So now you're in another town. Those things are experiences that, even though there has other things surrounding it, those are normal experiences, however heightened by traumatic experiences. So
Yeah.
that's why I'm like, it's so important to begin to change the experiences, right? and and,
Mhm.
and, and I mean, purposely, willfully, right?
Right.
Step out of that to create another norm. And I want to tell people, because a lot of times, as therapists, we well, not as therapists, but some therapists will try to get you to either denounce or not, just dismiss, what happened. No, no, no. It became a part of you. We talked about that earlier, about the changing of the brain, the changing of the character, the changing of your behavior and patterns. No, it is a part of you. So what you do is you learn how to live with that part of you, but that part of you doesn't become the prevalent part of you. You know what
Right.
I mean?
Yes. A good thing that has been happening lately with, you know, the other owner, David L. David of the radio station,
Hmm.
like if feels like I'm stressed out, we'll just hop on a plane and go somewhere for the day, or a day or two. You
Hmm.
And let me tell you, we were we were in New York,
Hmm.
and we were coming back to catch our flight home, whatever. And girl, why did he get off the shuttle? Right.
Uh-huh.
And then the shuttle driver shuts the door on me and takes off.
What?
I'm like, hey, wait. He keeps on going. Girl, that was my second time. No, my first, well, yeah, my second time at that airport. Then he drops me off at B terminal and I got to get to C. And it's not like you can walk these terminals. So I had to catch another shuttle
Mm-hmm.
to another shuttle. And
To make
I'm
it to your
like,
favorite
oh, this
country.
is a
That's what I'm
joke.
talking about. The anxiety there. But I know
Mhm.
that's it right there because that's good. You have to catch a shuttle. First of all, you got taken where you didn't want to go. That is probably already started the whole oh my gosh, right? Like wait, what? And I'm in New York. You know what I'm saying? It's like
Yes.
all the things that probably were going through your head. I got to catch this plane. I got to make it back home. I'm
Renee, it was
separated from
so
my
bad.
man.
It was so bad. There was a feeling of abandonment.
Yes, come on. Uh-huh.
There was a feeling of just like straight up anxiety instantly.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
then
I
when
love
I got on the last shuttle,
uh-huh.
then I had to take off sprinting to priority.
Find out you was what's his name? What's the man name? Oh, they took him through the airport.
I felt like Flojo. I was
Oh,
like, oh my God, I'm running. I was like, oh my God. And then
oh
I'm
my
having
God.
this anxiety thing going on too. And I was just like, oh my God, wow. But needless to say, I made the flight.
And see,
I made the flight.
that's what I wanted to get to because I love listen to that. You made the flight. So you get a chance to change that whole situation by looking at the end result. All of that was a lot, but the
Mhm.
fact that you made it. And I think people need to see that when it comes down to not mental health, to anxiety. They have to look at, I want you to focus, not you, but I'm just like all of us, focus on the part that is the positive, the end result. You made it. You made it. And that helps take away and diffuse all the things that happened before without not acknowledging them because you have to acknowledge them because they made changes to your thought process, they made changes to your body, they made changes to your feelings. But then at the end of it all, you get to wear your victor's crown. Like, I made it. I actually made it. I made
And
it.
I was super proud of myself because I didn't bust out in tears. Because
Mm-hmm,
that's one thing my father didn't allow. He didn't allow any crying.
mm-hmm.
So I grew up not crying. And
Thank
so when he died, I got my cry on. I cried about everything. I was like, woof, and you have to have those good
you.
cries
Got
too,
to.
you
You got
know?
You got
So
to. That's the way our body actually releases. Otherwise, that's what happens when we don't. We those physical changes, those physical ailments, when we don't release. And sis, I know how that is. I when I lost when my son, I had to lay my son to rest. It took me
uh,
3 years to actually break down the cry. And I was living in California, and I was in a darn 99-cent store, and everything I mean, all was well. And I'm standing in line, sweeping pay for my little whatever I had, and I started crying, and I could not stop. And it was like no consoling me. It was 3 years of being in my head about stories, right? Because that's what that anxiety about stories. What if I was there? Was I a good mother? Did I do well? Was it my fault? How much could I have changed? Da, da, da. Like literally everything was going on in my head because as we said in the beginning, that's what anxiety is. It is creating narratives and stories that
yeah.
brings us to a point of not being able to function or even down to the point of being debilitating. But then when I started looking at, you know what, Renee, you're in California, you have his daughter, your other daughter is doing things in her career. We're experiencing the sunshine. I've never been to California. I'm living in another place. I'm strong enough to do it. All those things kind of gave me the strength to keep pushing forward to the next time. But it was difficult for me to cry, sis. It was difficult for me to cry for a long time. It was. It
Really?
was.
Man, when I got the opportunity to cry and not be told that I'm being weak, I took
Mm,
full advantage of it. You're
mm,
too tough to be crying. Jacksons don't cry.
mm. Now, how
Stuff
did that, listen, hearing that in itself, Jacksons don't cry. Like, that gave you a complex, I'm sure. Like, well, wait a minute, can I be JohVonni though? Or can I be female though? Or can I be a woman though? Can I be a human though? I want to cry. And we
Yeah.
should.
We need to.
Mm-hmm.
If something is hurting you, you have to.
Tell
You
them, sis.
internalize it, because when you sit with that, it just eats at your soul. You know,
Absolutely.
you have to get that out. And that's like the perfect opportunity also to journal.
Oh my gosh, yes. And listen to y'all. Y'all know we provide solutions on here. And I love when our guest gives us solutions, because that's what this is about. We're not just talking about the problem, we're talking about the solutions. And journaling will become your best friend. And you never know that there just may be an author in you. Because I mean, she's an author, I'm an author. Writing down this stuff, you don't even realize how much it helps other people. Your
Oh,
story
yeah.
is needed to be heard. You don't think that maybe what you went through or how you came through it or your situation is impactful, but it really is. It's so impactful and needed for somebody else to hear. That's why we're being unboxed. That's a part of this whole platform. It's people sharing their stories, triumphs over tragedy, understanding how they are they're overcomers and things of that nature, because their story is impactful for somebody else's. And you're
Right.
right, JohVonni, that journaling is major.
Oh, yeah. You know, the therapists that I have been to have always suggested it, and I always have journaled.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like to sit up there and type it into, a laptop or anything like that. I like to have an actual journal with
Mm-hmm.
a favorite pen. And then when I'm in my writing mode, I have a thinking cap. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a certain hat I like to wear when I write.
I
You
love
know what I mean?
it.
It's goofy but hey, it is what it is.
Mm-hmm. I
But
love it.
at the end of the day, I had this realization too. It's like, I'm here. I'm meant to do something.
Mm-hmm.
I've cheated death so many times.
What?
Yeah, I have, suicidal thoughts, all of that. I like so much just on my own, you know what I mean? Because again, it goes back to that stigma about talking about things.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know, that just is like not something that was happening within my own immediate family. So, journaling saved me. It really did, because I got to pour out, my heart and soul. And I had the realization that I can't go away. You
Mm.
I cannot stop being myself. I can't disappear.
Mm.
So I have to make do with what I have. You know
Mm.
what I mean? And jump over these obstacles that seem to get in my way from time to time. Because it can be heavy on your shoulders when you've got the whole world disliking you because of how you came into the world, where you had no choice in that.
Absolutely.
You don't get to pick your parents.
Right. Well, I want to tell you, I'm so glad you're here. And
Oh,
so many
thank you.
others are glad you're here. And every life, I believe, honestly, is here for purpose, on purpose, right?
Right.
And even just being here today was a purpose, because others needed to hear that. First and foremost, we always look at, and I don't like it, but it is what it is. We put stigmas not only just on us as a color, but we put stigmas on people who we deem celebrity in some sort of way, right? We put them in a certain place and put them on a pedestal, and we assume that they're not human. And that's the worst thing we can ever do, because at the end of the day, they are human, right? And so
Right.
things that we say, the things that we write, the things like, sometimes hold your opinion. It doesn't matter. Who cares, right? Like you
Right.
said, you had to start off life with people not liking you as a child, you as a person, like you said, not because you were able to pick your parents, but just because God thought so fit that you were supposed to be here. That's just how it came. You understand what I'm saying? And that
Yeah.
was nothing that you had control of, but people's opinions, people's thoughts, people writing things, people saying things. Like you said, it starts planting seeds very early on, that now you have to first be real and recognize them, and then now you have to uproot them. But know that you have that supportive system. You've got supportive people who are like, listen, we rolling with you, sis. Like I said, love that you said you got to play the hands, the cards that you're dealt with, but you can always change the cards.
That's true. That's very true. And fortunate enough for me, because a lot of people just don't even know how to get help.
How about that? How about that? How
Yeah,
about that?
you know what I mean? Fortunate for me, I think because I'm nosy, and then the mind is just interesting to me to begin with.
Yes.
Psychology, all of that is just interesting. So I'm glad that I had the know-how,
Hmm.
because I think about people that don't have the know-how, or have never heard anything positive, or
Right.
they're just stuck in this vicious cycle, and don't even know that they need to get out of it. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? It's an unfortunate situation, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done. We need to really start taking care of our human beings. You
Right.
know what I mean? There's no,
Starting with self-care. And I
yeah,
know people talk about, well, wait, what's self-care, right? And I always say self-care is not taking that bath and just going to get your nails done. Self-care is like, let me spend a minute with what is going on with my thoughts. What's going on inside of my heart? Like, and then once we start looking into those things, honestly, getting into connections, whether it be with a therapist that you feel comfortable with. And honestly, listen, if you got to go through 10 of them till you feel comfortable with one, it ain't you. It's you feeling comfortable with who you talking to. So I tell people all the time, I may not be for everybody. And, and sometimes when I have to find therapy for my children or for whatever the case may be, I'm like, hey, guess what, baby? If you don't like and get a feel of that you can connect with this person, you don't have to. But you want to get with people that that you can innately feel that they will support and hear you without judgment. You said
right,
something earlier, JohVonni, about being an empath. That comes from, honestly, a lot of empaths, if not all, come from going through traumatic experiences, which
oh yeah,
awakens and heightens a sense of self in you to recognize that in other people, right?
yeah,
And I share with people all the time when they say, well, I'm just trying to be nice, or I'm a nice person. And I always say, listen, you don't have to be nice. Nothing anywhere says that you have to be nice. What you have to be is kind. And empaths
right,
have to be kind. And that kindness means it's being able to show love, give love, support, or whatever, but with wisdom, because everybody does not deserve that part of you that will help them, because some people will take you down in the boat. So we got to be wise as empaths as to who we divvy out. If it's divvying out to depletion, then that's not really where we should be divvying out. But it's good for us to be empaths because we can connect with other people that we can be supportive to and know that they really need it.
yes, but for me being an empath, like I feel people's sorrows,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm,
it can just really be overwhelming. And then next thing I know, I'm having a crisis.
mm-hmm,
You know
mm-hmm,
what I mean?
mm-hmm.
And then I noticed that being an empath, that hurt people are drawn to you.
They are.
You know,
Because like I was saying, because they see that it's a spiritual familiar connection. However, we have to be wise in how much of it, because like you said, you can become drained. A person can drain you from that very thing. So we have to, that's where that self-care comes in. We have to make sure we've got enough self to give somebody else something, even though we see it and have it. And I'm telling you, I started off like doing a lot of social work. And I remember someone talking about and said, you're going to wear yourself out. Since I used to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, like clients would call me 3 o'clock in the morning saying that they were in need. And I would leave my household and go and give them this, that, and another. And when I talked to my mentor about that, I was like, yeah, I was there for such and such. And and she would look at my case notes and go, 3 o'clock in the morning. She was like, let me tell you something real early on, my sister. You will wear yourself out trying to be everything to everybody. Yes, you are there to help people, but if you don't help yourself first, you are not going to be able to help anybody else. Take the cape off. And I was like, oh wow. And it was wearing me out. But I didn't know how to have that wisdom that I'm talking about right now, as far as like who to give it to. But then when I, like I said, when I started doing more self-care and when I evaluated people that I interacted with, that you like, I mean, I will go out my way. I've got people throughout my life that will tell you stuff like, oh, Renee will give you her last. Renee will be there for you. Renee, and that changed a little bit. Yep. You know why? Because I got wise to not keep giving my last. Because once I gave my last and it wasn't replenished, or I was too exhausted to replenish it myself, I had nothing and I was in crises. And guess what? Then I found myself needing the same therapy that I was giving out to other people.
Yeah. Oh, I get it. I get it. I understand. I can relate. I get it.
Yeah. And so, sis, you know, for this Women's Month, we gonna stay on, you know, making sure that we are not even just our sister's keeper, but that we are our sister, and that we're gonna be wise with checking out where we are in our heart, where we are in our mind, in our thought. We're gonna do what JohVonni said. We're gonna do some journaling, and you know, for people who like, look, I don't like to write. If you have a phone, which 99% of us do, baby, you better open up that notes part of your phone, and you can either type it in or you can even talk it in, but you get it out so that it doesn't stay in, because that's going to be a huge part of dispelling, breaking down anxiety, breaking down narratives, and helping you see. I remember going to therapy a long time ago, sis, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking about a lot of, because I, you know, got this big clinical season. And I was like, well, you know, what's going on? Because if we didn't even get a touch about that, people would, but I remember them saying, think of one of your traumas. Like think of that, what happened, that story. And as much as I tried to put it out of my head, it just kind of kept coming. So we took that therapy. We took that story. Cognitive behavior. We took that story that was just wearing me out and had been wearing me out, and we broke that story down. It was like, okay, wait, so this happened, but now stop for a minute. Now that you're here, did that take away from who you were as a person? I'm like, no. They're like, did it take away from you still being able to go to school or have children or da-da-da? Like, no. And it kind of broke it down to where once I went through that whole story again, I looked at it and was like, wow, it had been plaguing me all these years. When I look at it, that was a moment of time back then. I'm not any more strength to carry into it still affecting me right now. And that's really something for anyone listening. I want you to hear that. I want you to hear, and even hear that story about JohVonni talking about, you know, missing. I mean, the train, being in the airport. You made it. You made it. As difficult or as challenging as that was that you went through, you made it. If you're still here, breathing, you have the ability and the strength to put the right environment, right into to dispel whatever it is. So it no longer becomes you. It's no longer your fault.
You're stuck.
I didn't hear you.
You are absolutely right.
Yeah.
And guess what, Renee? I'm making it, because guess what? I firmly believe no weapon formed against me shall prosper.
Oh.
Even though heavy is the head that wears the crown.
Well, you was in my head. I was going to say that. I was going to say that. You know what? But heavy is the head that wears the crown, but also heavy is the sisters who help her hold it up. You understand what I'm saying?
Seriously.
So, yes. So make sure we are in crowds where people see. Oh, wait a minute, his crown is rolling. Wait a minute, her crown is tipping, and says, let me help you put that up. Because JohVonni, you said this in the beginning, the world has changed. 2025 got people who are lovers of themselves.
Yes.
Being connected to kind of just get to and get stepped on to get to the next place. But it's people like us. It's platforms like the Flex Radio and Unbox that gives people a connection to other people who actually care, other people who you really can reach out to. You know what? People who really can get that will help you through this journey so that you're not here alone. That it's not everybody, but that you can do this. You really can. I don't know what's happening, but yeah, that you really can make it. And I'm so glad that you was here with me. Just let everybody know you made it. You made it and you're making it.
Oh, yeah. And I'm not finished either. I have a lot of stuff to do. You know
Yes.
what I mean? I'm not done. This journey is not over. And I'm on this journey. I'm on the journey on the short, well, the long and narrow path. I'm not walking the broad path. Mine is
That's right.
narrow, you know, but, you know, I believe in myself, you know, and I believe in healing.
Yes.
I believe as long as I'm God fearing, I'm going to be all right, you know, and I have to give myself pep talks, you know, like, girl, you got this, you got this, you got this. But
Yeah.
JohVonni is going to be okay. JohVonni is always going A-okay because I'm make it a mission to be, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. And y'all, like she said, she ain't finished yet. So you need to be on the lookout for things to come because that name ain't going away. She's not going away, and her purpose is not going away. So y'all better be on the lookout.
Yes, seriously.
Well, thank you for chatting with the girl. And, you know, we're going to keep it, chop it up anyway, because, you know, whenever we talk, it's always a good talk. It's always real. It's always encouraging. You learn something. You're lifted with something. So I like having Sister Girl chats with you. So thank you for coming.
Well, thank you for having me. It was so much fun. And I just wanted to say, I just love our team on the Flex Radio.
Yes. How about
We
that?
have some amazing.
It's a Flex family.
Yeah, we have some individuals, you know, and everybody is just so wonderful. We've got the Vasquez family, you know, and we have Miss Green, we've got DJ Motion, we have you, we have Zoe, and of course we have David, El David. You know, everybody is in motion and making things happen. And we've got a lot of to look forward to too.
Absolutely. 2025. Watch, listen, you're going to be hearing a lot about the Flex Radio. You're going to be seeing a lot of the Flex Radio. So listen, you stay tuned. You be on the lookout. We will keep you abreast and keep you posted because we want you to be a part of our family too.
Yes, for sure.
For sure. All right, sis. Yeah.